Hi, lovies. It's Christina here on Universal Spirit Podcast with Karma's Eyes Psychic LLC. It is March 2023, and I haven't put out a podcast since November of 2022. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope everything is great. Happy New Year. Happy Chinese New Year. Happy, spring equinox. Happy a lot of things that I've missed over the last couple of months. However, some of you who have been following a few things in my family have happened that have kept me from keeping up with my regular, business schedule. Everyone knows about during Christmas time when my son was brutally attacked by our dog, and we have since put our dog down. However, my son is doing fine, doing well, but it has taken a bit of an emotional toll on our family. Luckily, though, we are healing from it. We are getting better from it. We're growing from it. And my son is doing very well. He's doing better, actually. So thank you guys for those who reached out, and thank you for your patience and your understanding as to why it has taken me a while to get back on track, but here I am. So I just wanted to keep you guys up to speed. My Udemy class is almost finished. I should be releasing it anytime now. However, I have been making so many promises as to when that was going to be out. So life has also gotten in the way of that. So sorry for the promises that I have, obviously not fulfilled. Definitely overpromised and underdelivered a few times. But, who's perfect, right? However, I still appreciate your support, your loyalty, and everything. You guys do make it all worthwhile. And also, I appreciate your growth and your interest in the spiritual. Because, of course, it is a journey, right? So, that's one little bit of my journey, and you've gone on that journey with me, and I've gone on your journey as well, through the times where I've gotten to learn a lot more about you, either through my social media or one-on-one speaking with you. There's a lot of things that we do have in common. There's a lot of things that we don't have in common that we both can learn and grow from. For those of you who do follow my podcast and follow my blogs, I often post about dreams that I have. And I have been having, I would say, a series of dreams. I would say since about, the end of November, the last time I actually made a podcast. I've been having these series of dreams. For those of you who don't know, I was raised in Camden, New Jersey, during the 90s, of course. I am currently 35 years old, and I grew up there with my mom, my dad, and my two siblings. And I obviously did not have the most perfect childhood. It wasn't all bad, but it wasn't all good. And I do often speak about, trauma, psychology, and spiritual growth, and a lot of my paranormal experiences that I've had throughout my childhood. And on my website, you can find that it was during when I was 8 years old that I realized I was psychic through experience that I particularly had at my house. But you can read about that on my website. But I have had a series of dreams lately about going back to my childhood home. These have come in about 8 or 9 total dreams. But at the beginning of these dreams, it's usually me somewhere very far away from my house, but I know my house is close by. I would say the very first dream I had was that I was on a city bus. Not sure, exactly how I got on the city bus, as to why I was on the city bus, and also realizing that I was not an adult on the city bus at the time of the dream, or at least this first dream. And I have this dream where I'm just like walking past all these different people on a public city bus, and I get off and the bus drops me off, and it is a very familiar place. And in fact, it's not taking me to a place that is currently existing. It has taken me back in time, because there is a hospital in Camden, New Jersey, that was very close to my house that no longer is there anymore. But in my dream, it was extremely vivid and extremely clear. And it was exactly the way I particularly remember it. Same color of the bricks and the sign and the street corner, and even the stores that are on that corner are no longer there. But in this dream, I got taken back, literally taken back in time. And I was back on that street corner, back where the corner store was, where the Chinese food place was, where the hospital was, where the drugstore was. And I'm walking up the street going toward my house. And I could see the gate of the hospital. I could see the sidewalk and all the houses, mostly all to my right rather than to my left, because the hospital dominated most of that block anyway. And throughout these series of dreams, I would just get closer and closer to my house. Like the next dream, it would be me in the corner store a block closer, or a block farther away. And then the next dream, I'm on the next side street, which is 9th Street, because I lived on 8th Street. So I'm on 9th Street looking at everybody on 9th Street, and going back in time somehow, some way, seeing things that have happened in the past, or maybe things I hadn't seen during my time when I was there. They're not necessarily from memories. They are just observations of time. Not really sure if I was even a part of those times, but I saw them then in my dream, if you're trying to keep up with what I'm trying to say. And then the next to last dream I had was about maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm standing on my block where my house was, and I can't quite turn the corner. There's something, for me to observe, the bridge, the next street over, the traffic light, the houses, the old tires that used to just scatter, all over the backyard of this one particular house. I was just observing every single detail, every part of the fence, my neighbor's car and everything like that. Like I said, it wasn't any present day stuff. It was back in time. Because back in time, I used to live across the street from a daycare. And in this dream, this daycare was very much functioning. But when I was growing up, it had recently shut down. In the red building, because it was red, because in the 90s, things were different. In the dream, it was functioning. There were kids there. There were teachers there. There were people, whatever, and just walking around doing stuff. And to me, that was odd, because I remember specifically that playground or that daycare was no longer a thing. It had been shut down for years and years when I was growing up. And just this abandoned building. And the closer and closer I got to my house, the more afraid I got. I felt as though I had no control at all. I felt like something was pushing me there, something was leading me there, almost like the wind was forcing me to walk in that direction. Me seeing my old corner store and walking down those side streets and seeing, neighbors I used to live near, and old churches I used to pass all the time. And this, during my waking life would actually remind me of things from my childhood that weren't so good, but also weren't so bad. I started reaching out to childhood friends. I started reaching out to, people to see if they were still in business and if their business had moved, where they had moved to, and et cetera, et cetera. Kind of like, I don't know, discovering a mystery to my past, using like a really big magnifying glass, looking for something, but I don't really know what it is I'm looking for. I'm still in the middle of these dreams, not knowing as to why I'm there, as to what it is I'm looking for or what I'm supposed to be finding. I feel as though, is there a means to an end? Is it like I get somewhere and then I go grab something and then I leave or something? I wasn't quite sure. And I have dug very deep into my subconscious, trying to figure out exactly why I was going there. So anyway, last night was like the last of the series of these dreams. At least I kind of hope it was, because it felt very final. It felt very, completed. I am, in fact, finally, walking on the block of where my house is. And I see the houses, and they don't look that much different from the last time I saw them. I don't even know how many years ago. I'm 35. And like, I saw the number that's outside of my door, which is 1432. That's the number where I used to live. And in my adult life, driving past it recently in my adult life, I believe was last year, I knew that the house was condemned. So I knew there was nothing in there. At least that was my thinking at the time when I saw the number. I was like, it's empty. There's nothing going on in there. Well, I was wrong, because I saw a light on, and I was like, that's weird, because the last time I walked past this in waking life, it was boarded up. It was a note on the door saying you can't trespass here. There's nothing happening in here. We're doing construction or whatever the hell. And the light is on and the number is shining. I'm just like, all right, I guess there's something going on. So I open the door and I go in there. It is literally nothing like the way it looked when I was growing up. And in fact, it wasn't even a house anymore. It was like an office building, or it was a, I don't know, like an institution, so to speak, or just a big place. Okay, there were desks, there were balconies, there were just all this corporate looking stuff. But I happened to notice that people sitting at the desk were these two women. Okay, these two women, just I guess they were the secretary of whoever the boss was, or whoever was in charge of this, operation. But before I get to the women at the desk, I couldn't help but notice that this place was literally, and I mean overrun and flooded with children. There were children everywhere, to the point where it almost looked like why are there children in a building? Like is this is it a school or something? Like, what is this? Like, what's happening? Like, how are children just hanging out here in the hallway or whatever? But the more and more concerned I got, I started realizing that there were, like an equal amount of adults taking care of them. These kids were safe, they were playing, they were happy, they were content, they were clean, they were just, hanging out, they were just there. Okay, I mean, I could almost assume it would be some type of an orphanage, or, place where kids are kept, I guess if they don't have parents, I really couldn't quite make out what I was looking at. But I got concerned, and I was like, okay, well, I guess they're fine. But I still couldn't understand why I was there. But I was just looking around. There were, elevators, there were escalators, there were balconies. It was just huge. And I was just like, this is nothing like the house I used to live in. Like, my house was a regular size, shotgun house. And if you don't know what a shotgun house is, it means when you open the door to your home, you can see the back door from your front door. You could shoot it and not hurt anyone. That's what a shotgun house is. Okay. But shotgun house to institution is a big difference. Anyway, I'm walking around for a while, and for some reason I notice that there's this woman. I guess, she has her hand on my back. She's holding me, or she's guiding me. She's pretty much showing me around, but I didn't realize she was there until the very end of my dream. And she was like, okay, well, it's time for you to go now. And I was like, but I don't know why I'm here, though. She's like, well, it really kind of doesn't matter. You've got to see everything. Okay, we've shown you everything. Because to me, in my mind, I'm like, it took me 9 dreams to get here. Could we at least see something significant? Or maybe my ego was in check, and realizing that I had, in fact, achieved a goal, and that I did see something significant. Maybe I was dissatisfied. Maybe that's, my nature to not be satisfied with, these profound things. Because in this lady's mind, who was behind me, she was like, no, this is the profound thing. You had expected to see something, terrible or scary, and you were scared at first, but now you're in here and you realize it's not that bad. It's not anything bad. But since you know this now, it's time for you to go, because you can't live here anymore. It's no longer a home for you. That it's for the next generation of children. And I got this weird feeling, while she was speaking to me, that, I guess she had been raised there. Okay. And to her, it's kind of like, trust me, you're going to be okay. Okay. But since you're already grown, you got to go. Like, you can't stay here. And she led me up this like electric escalator. Now, all escalators are electric, but I had described it previously on my Facebook post as just electric, but it was actually like a futuristic looking escalator. Like, it was like white and blue, and it had like glowing blue lights and stuff. Like, it looked like something out of Star Wars, pretty much. It almost looked like a fun escalator, like it was kind of for kids, but for adults kind of thing. So I'm going up the escalator, and like, she holds the door open for me, and it's like she won't move until I go through the door. I finally went through the door and didn't quite exit the exact way I came in, but it's as soon as I walked out of the escalator door, because escalators don't really have doors. It's kind of like they're just stairs, but this one had a door. And as soon as I walked out of the door, I woke up, and I felt immediate relief. Like, I finally got to go in the house. Like, this series of dreams hopefully is over, and hopefully, I learned the lesson. I could give this dream or these series of dreams so many themes and categories and allegories and meanings, because there's just so much going on. I do believe it is the first step of many steps, but what a wonderful conclusion! What an awesome, perspective. Now, it's March 23rd, 2023, and Pluto is entering Aquarius until, I believe, November of 2024. And Pluto being the ruler of Scorpio, the underworld, and Aquarius. Okay, going into Aquarius has to deal with revamping things, revisiting, rehashing, and definitely improving. So definitely check your moon, sun, and rising sign. And I am, in fact, a Scorpio rising, and it might not be a coincidence why I had this dream last night, moving forward into this planetary transition. I believe it does have a lot to do with getting connected with my childhood roots, into healing, things that I guess I thought were bad or thought were troublesome, but were actually good for me. Or maybe I need to look to the past in order to find, the answers to my future, remembering things from my deep past that have worked and have not worked, and things that I need to get over and things I need to heal, and vice versa. And not just me. Pluto and Aquarius applies to everyone who has those placements, but it might be a good time to possibly put these dreams into perspective and see how it aligns with what the planets are trying to teach us at this time, or the energies that are trying to come together and build us up, because there's going to be a transitioning of this sort in the next 20 years. So that was just the series of dreams I wanted to share with you guys. So thank you guys for listening. This is Christina on Universal Spirit Podcast with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC, and I hope to hear from you soon. Please let me know what you thought about this particular dream. What are your thoughts of what this dream could mean? Where's your expertise? What are some questions you would have? How did you visualize it in your head? Have you had dreams similar to this? I want to hear, I want to see, and I want to know. I love to know about you. So please leave a comment, follow, share, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye, lovies. See you later.